Home Depot paint mixers of Reddit. What is the weirdest thing you've had to color match? Well, I don't work at Home Depot, but I work at a automotive paint jobber. I had a black gentleman come in about 6 months ago. He's been a customer of mine for years. He informed me he needed me to match something in his car. This isn't uncommon. We go outside to scan look at colors daily. When I get out there, he opens the back door and grabs a prosthetic leg. The problem is they sent it to him to wear, but it was for a white person. He said he couldn't be walking around in shorts with a white leg, lol. So he hands me one of his older black legs and asks me to match it best I can. It didn't take long and he was happy with the color. I just picked a brown out of the book and tinted on it till it looked close enough to what he had before.
It's a tie between the large jar of ghee, clarified butter, and someone's skin. I got both of those within a week of each other. The skin thing was because a woman came in looking for a paint color that would match her skin, so I thought, beep it, let's match her arm and see what happens. She loved it so much she ordered it for her whole house. I named that color Susan's arm. Edit. I forgot a couple of other weird ones. Scotch masking tape blue. Was really happy with how that one turned out. Multiple ottomans, a reading chair, dog fur, an egg, a painter's shirt and a painter's jeans. Whenever people ask me this question, I'll respond with, let me tell you about the skin woman, which is probably the worst out of context sentence you could hear out of a Home Depot employee.
Somebody brought in a bar of soap for me to match. I think it was Irish Spring.
I worked at a store called Cloverdale Paint. I matched Sharpies, microscopic flecks of paint people scraped off their walls, a woman's teal underwear, and more. Maybe the weirdest one was matching a guy's girlfriend's iris color. He wanted to paint something the color of her eyes, so he brought in a close-up photo of her. It was difficult because an iris isn't just one solid color, but it was fun and he left happy with this kind of smoky blue.
Older lady comes in with a Ziploc bag full of dirt. I figure she wants us to test its pH or something. Nope. She has a walkway, and when it rains some of the dirt from her flower bed runs onto the walkway. She wants to paint the walkway the same color as the dirt so it isn't as noticeable. I try to talk her into using landscape ties or something to prevent the dirt from getting onto the concrete in the first place. Nope. Just wants to paint it. So I asked her if she wanted the paint to match the color of the dirt when it was wet or dry. Blew her mind.
I'm a tattoo artist, but I matched a skin tone to cover white spots on a black gentleman's hand. Not weird and not hard for me to do, but he was blown away after telling me how long he had the spots and how fast I made them disappear. I mixed dark brown with a hint of olive.
My manager color matched a cat once. Mostly people just try to have you match splinters or things that have multiple color tones into just a general vibe.
Not Home Depot, but had someone bring a chocolate milkshake into our store wanting paint matched to it. My other favorite story is a couple who bought Ben Hogan's house in Westover Hills in Fort Worth. They brought in a sample of something that was oil-based paint and had nicotine stains. We tried to explain to them that it used to be white or off-white, but the yellowing of the paint and the nicotine had turned it to this snot yellow color. They didn't care, they wanted the color Ben Hogan had been living with, just freshened up.
Worked at Walmart about 18 years ago and had to occasionally run the paint area. Wife and husband brought in a 4-foot by 4-foot piece of wall that they painted. They wanted me to match it. The wife then pulls a paint splotch from her purse, and says something like, "This is the paint we used from Home Depot." Some people are just born to entertain.
Not Home Depot, but we had a customer come in with a statue of the baby Jesus from her church's nativity scene. The paint was chipped and she said the price to replace the statue was too high, so she asked us to see if we could match it. The woman working the paint desk with me said she'd give it a try. She succeeded. That's right, she color matched the baby Jesus.
I don't work at the despot, but I am a certified paint expert according to the hardware store I do work at. The weirdest thing I had to color match was a carousel horse. Well, actually the leg of a carousel horse, because that was the smallest part the customer could bring with them. I used the X-Rite Color Designer Plus system with their spectrophotometer, along with 10 years of experience, and I'm happy to say I was able to hit it dead on.
Oh, now that's long ago. I used to be very good at manually matching colors, no machines in those days. There was the standard bits of paper and cloth. One day someone walks in covered in dried paint, and asks me to match the color on their arm. Someone has spilled the paint all over him and they needed more, but had lost the color identification code somehow. He stood around patiently for an hour until I sorted out an exact match.
Don't work with paint at all, but one day I got home and parked next to me was a light green Thunderbird. I said to my wife at the time, that color looks like it came off an Avon bottle. Skin so soft to be specific. About a month later the car was back and I noticed a license plate on the front with a web address, so I looked up the site and emailed the owner. Turns out he was visiting the guy downstairs from me, they were in a band together, so I went down to talk to him. I asked him about the car and mentioned my comment to my wife and he laughed. Turns out the car was originally his mother's car, she had bought it brand new from the factory just to get that color. She had sent them a Skin So Soft bottle so they could make sure they got it right.
Tostitos spinach dip. It was odd enough and with a good reward that I haven't forgotten it. A long time ago I worked for one of Home Depot's competitors and someone came in to ask if I'd be able to match the spinach dip that Tostitos was about to roll out. He wanted undercooked, perfectly cooked, and overcooked matched so that they could paint the inside of jars to show the manufacturing teams what each looked like as it all was made. The guy showed me a jar of the dip and we talked about how he'd have to remove all the spinach and red stuff, bell peppers, tomatoes, chunks and have just the actual dip. He left but came in a few days later with just the dip smeared and dried on some little cards or something, then I spent a couple of hours working with him to get the colors right. In the end he was happy. A day after that he came in just to bring me a couple of bags full of Lay's, Tostitos parent company, and Tostitos with multiple jars of dips, including the not yet released spinach dip. He told me to share it all, but I was in my mid-20s working full-time and trying to finish my second college run at the time, so that free food was a godsend. I put those bags in my car instead of the break room and took it all home.
I worked at Lowe's, but someone once wanted the blue color of the sign hanging above the paint area. There was no way I could get the sign down to put it in the scanner. I picked a paint swatch that I thought came the closest and he agreed to it.
Worked as a paint mixer at Home Depot for 3 years. Some of the things I've color matched: a leaf, a rock, a few shirts. A painter had color spilled on his hand but didn't have the color. Someone brought in an entire door, termite infested wood, not weird but made a huge mess, some grass, for an outdoor deck.
Spent more than a decade working at a paint store and by far the weirdest thing I had to match was the toe beans of the customer's cat. At first I just grabbed a fan book of colors and was showing her what was in the ballpark. At this point she was holding her cat, and it was content enough in its owner's arms. This customer wanted a precise match using the color spectrometer though, and handed the cat over to me. The feline was not happy. At the very least it wasn't trying to squirm out of my arms, but it was giving me quite a stink eye and was growling the whole time I was holding it up to the sensor. TL, doctor, I color matched a very unhappy cat's paw.
I'm not a paint mixer, but my dad was, and he told me the weirdest thing he had to match was a half-eaten apple, the inside.
I used to work at a Home Depot a few years ago. I mostly worked in the lumber department but worked in the paint department for my last month or so. Someone brought me a pair of shoes to color match, and they bought several gallons of the paint for a large room, so they must have really loved those shoes. If curious, it was just a regular pair of shoes. I'm not sure what the significance to them was as I didn't ask.
Formerly Lowe's, but I had to try to match a pillow once. It always came out light because the elastic in the fabric showed too much. The worst color match I ever had was a lady who wanted a color from the catalog, but didn't realize the catalog was printed on beat paper. She came in the next day furious that it didn't match, even though it was the correct color via the color code. I had to color match our own damn catalog. It was stupid. Edit, there was also a rumor that someone had to color match a cat once, but I don't know if that was actually true.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.